Today, we will be covering Implement Token Economy Procedures. This is task list item C12. Throughout this training, you'll be required to answer homework questions, and following the video, there will be a brief quiz. This training program is based on the RBT task list and is designed to meet the 40-hour training requirement for RBT certification. The program is offered independent of the BACB. The agenda for today is to first go over token economy basics. Then we'll cover creating a token economy, which includes ongoing training and evaluating a token economy. And finally, we will conclude with examples as well as video examples. To begin, let's define a token economy. Malat and Shane define token economy as a system of generalized learned reinforcers in which the organism that receives those generalized reinforcers can save them and exchange them for a variety of backup reinforcers later. Cooper, Heron, and Heward have identified three major components to token economies. First, there's a list of target behaviors. Second, there are tokens, points, or marks that participants earn for emitting the target behaviors that have been identified. And third, there should be a menu of backup reinforcers. So what exactly are backup reinforcers? These are preferred items, activities, or privileges. These should be things that you have already identified to function as reinforcers for the client. Therefore, these backup reinforcers should be individualized. The participants will then be able to obtain them by exchanging earned tokens for them. Question: what are the three major components to a token economy? Make sure to get this filled in on your homework sheet, and I'll now give you some time to get that question filled in. The answer to the previous question, what are the three major components to a token economy, are 1. The target behaviors, 2. The tokens that will be used, and 3. Backup reinforcers. On your homework sheet, get this answer filled in. I'll now give you some time to do that. Token economies involve generalized learned reinforcers. Malat and Shane define these specific reinforcers as a learned reinforcer that is a reinforcer because it has been paired with a variety of other reinforcers. Unlearned reinforcers are ones that require no pairing. Some examples would include food or water. These will function as reinforcers, meaning they'll increase the frequency of a response that they follow. A learned reinforcer, on the other hand, requires a pairing with those unlearned reinforcers. And now generalized learned reinforcers require pairing with a variety of either unlearned reinforcers, learned reinforcers, or both. So how do we establish generalized learned reinforcers? To do this, you must pair them with a variety of existing reinforcers. As a child, attention was paired with a variety of existing reinforcers, such as food, conversation, physical touch, and thus it became a generalized learned reinforcer. Now let's look at the pairing procedure for the previous example. The pairing procedure is defined by Malott and Shane as the pairing of a neutral stimulus with a reinforcer or aversive stimulus. When attention was present, it was immediately followed by food or conversation or physical touch. And if attention was not present, neither were food, conversation, or physical touch. Attention was previously a neutral stimulus, meaning it didn't reinforce any response, but because of the repeated pairings with a variety of unlearned reinforcers, it then became a generalized learned reinforcer. The value altering procedure has taken effect. This states that the pairing procedure converts a neutral stimulus into a learned reinforcer or learned aversive stimulus. Let's compare and contrast learned reinforcers and generalized learned reinforcers. With learned reinforcers, you're only pairing a stimulus with a single type of backup reinforcer. For example, if you pair the sound of a click with access to food for a dog, this will make the click a learned reinforcer because it is only paired with a single type of backup reinforcer. A generalized learned reinforcer, on the other hand, is paired with a variety of other types of reinforcers. So, if you paired the click with food, water, car rides, being pet, etc., this would convert the click to a generalized learned reinforcer. With learned reinforcers, an organism can become satiated on the reinforcer that it is paired with, and it can make the learned reinforcer ineffective. For example, if the dog is satiated on food, the click will not function as a reinforcer. With generalized reinforcers, however, you do not need to be deprived of a specific reinforcer for it to be effective, and this is because it has been paired with a variety of other reinforcers. Question. Let's take a look at this case study. Alexis's mom gave her a poker chip for picking up her clothes and told her, "You can exchange that poker chip for an extra 5 minutes of TV time." Now, Alexis earns poker chips for completing her chores, and later she exchanges them for TV time, toys from the prize box, and her favorite snacks. What are the poker chips an example of? On your homework sheet, fill in the question, what are the poker chips an example of? I'll give you some time to get that question filled in. The answer to the previous question, what are the poker chips an example of, is a generalized learned reinforcer. The pairing procedure converted them from being a neutral stimulus, meaning they had no reinforcing effectiveness, to a generalized learned reinforcer. She can exchange them for a variety of backup reinforcers, such as TV time, prizes, her favorite snacks, etc. On your homework sheet, fill in the answer, generalized learned reinforcer. I'll give you some time to get that answer filled in. Now let's take a look at the functions of the tokens. These tokens have no intrinsic value, meaning they are worth nothing to us at first. They, however, acquire their function or value through their relations to other reinforcers. As we've previously discussed, it is through their repeated pairing with other unconditioned or conditioned reinforcers that they gain their value or function. These functions can include reinforcing functions, punishing functions, discriminative functions, etc., all depending on the reinforcers that they are paired with. Tokens function in a token economy in several important ways. First, they bridge the time gap between the occurrence of the target behavior and the delivery of the backup reinforcer. For example, a client may earn tokens during the afternoon, such as completing chores, but the delivery of the backup reinforcer is not until the next morning, such as getting pancakes for breakfast. These tokens, therefore, bridge this time gap between the behaviors and the backup reinforcer. Second, tokens bridge the setting gap. For example, target behaviors may occur in the morning while at school, and the backup reinforcer is not delivered until the child exchanges them later while at home, such as for dessert after dinner. Tokens also make the management of motivation less critical because you're using generalized learned reinforcers. Effectiveness of the tokens depends on the effectiveness of the backup reinforcers. By having a wide variety of backup reinforcers to choose from, you are less likely to encounter satiation. Question: money in the form of currency is an example of a token or generalized learned reinforcer. How is money an example of a generalized learned reinforcer? Get this question filled in on your homework sheet. I'll now give you some time to do so. The answer to the previous question, how is money an example of a generalized reinforcer, is that money has been paired with access to a variety of backup reinforcers. By earning money, saving it, and then exchanging it, you can gain access to these other reinforcers. Money, in and of itself, has no intrinsic value. Only through pairing it with other reinforcers does it then become valuable to us. On your homework sheet, fill in the answer, money has been paired with access to a variety of backup reinforcers. I'll give you some time to get that answer filled in. Rule control plays an important part in token economies. Malott and Shane define rule control as the statement of a rule controls the response described in that rule. Although it is not necessary for clients to be vocal verbal to be able to effectively follow a token economy, it is essential that they are able to follow rules and have some sort of rule-governed behavior because the backup reinforcers are not immediately delivered following the response. Clients must be able to understand that tokens can be exchanged for backup reinforcers and how to earn those tokens. So if they are given the rule, if you complete this task, you will get 1 token, and if you exchange these tokens, you can earn this backup reinforcer. Now let's cover level systems. These are a specific type of token economy. In a level system, participants move up or even down levels The moving up or down of levels is contingent on performance criteria with respect to target behaviors. Moving up in a level system will result in more access to privileges and more independence, whereas moving down would do the opposite. The schedule of token reinforcement is also thinned as they move up the level system. In 1997, Lyon and Lagarde used a 3-level system with classroom students. At level 1, useful but less desirable reinforcers were available. In order to earn these reinforcers, students had to earn 148 points out of the available 185 to purchase certain items. The top level, level 3, had powerful and highly desirable reinforcers. In this level, students had to earn at least 167 out of 185 points. As the students progressed through the levels, the expectations for their performance increased as well. Now that we've covered the basics of a token economy, let's watch a video example.
All right, thanks, bud. Here we go. Ooh, ooh, ah, says a monkey. That's right. Ooh, ooh, ah, says a monkey. Fantastic, Ethan. And let's do another one. You brush your teeth. That's right. You brush your teeth. Good job. Here you go, Munchkin. Good. That's okay. Touch your mouth. Touch your mouth. That's your mouth. Touch your mouth. That's your mouth. Okay. That's fine. A bee says, that's right. A bee says buzz. Nice answer. Close your eyes. Yeah, good job, Ethan. I'm fantastic. Closing your eyes. That's okay, buddy. There you go. Do this. Excellent. Doing this. Nice work. You get super wise Wyatt. Next up. Okay. Shrug shoulders. Shrug shoulders. That's shrugging your shoulders. Shrug your shoulders. That's shrugging your shoulders. Much better. Like the tokens, huh? What letter? E. You got it. It's the letter E. Very good. We like the tokens. All right, Munchkin, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Touch Play-Doh. You got it! Nice going. Touching the Play-Doh. Way to go, Rockstar. There you go. We touched the Play-Doh. Good work, buddy. Let's go in here. Okay, ready? You see with your eye. Excellent work. You see with your eye. Here you go, bud. Excellent. Do this. There you go. Good. Do this. That was better. Much better. What letter? D. You got it. You nailed it. It's the letter D. Yay. All right, one more question, one more token, and we're going to be all done working. What's this? That's right, Ethan. You got it, buddy. It's a book. Excellent work, my rock star. You got all of your tokens. Here we go. You got it, buddy. Fantastic working for your tokens, Ethan. Whee! So what did you want? Okay, good. Thank you for looking and asking. Here you go.
Question: in the previous video, how many tokens did the client need to earn before getting to choose a reinforcer? On your homework sheet, fill in this question. I'll now give you some time to do so. The answer to the previous question, how many tokens did the client need to earn before getting to choose a reinforcer, is 10. As a reminder, a token economy is different than a fixed ratio schedule. In a token economy, tokens are earned and then exchanged for a backup reinforcer. So they must be able to exchange for a variety of reinforcers. In the previous video, the client was asked what he would like as his reinforcer. On your homework sheet, fill in the answer 10. I'll give you some time to get that answer filled in on your homework sheet. Let's cover more in depth the differences between fixed ratio schedules and token economies. In both an FR schedule and a token economy, you can use tokens, and you can also use a token board. However, with a fixed ratio schedule, the tokens are paired with only one reinforcer. This would mean that the tokens are just a learned reinforcer. Whereas in a token economy, the tokens are paired with a variety of reinforcers. So looking back at the video example, if the client had to complete 10 responses and was only allowed access to the iPad, then this would be considered a fixed ratio schedule. However, since the client was able to choose his backup reinforcer, the tokens could be exchanged for a variety of things and is thus considered a token economy. Now we are going to move on to discuss how to design a token economy. To begin, there are 6 basic steps involved in designing and preparing to implement a token economy. They go as followed. 1. Identify target behaviors and rules. 2. Select tokens. 3. Develop a menu of backup reinforcers. 4. Establish a token exchange ratio. 5. Determine when and how tokens will be dispensed and exchanged, and what will happen if the requirements to earn a token are not met. And 6. Field test the system before full-scale implementation. We'll now go more in depth on each of the steps that are listed. The first step was to identify target behaviors and rules. You should always select only measurable and observable behavior. You should also specify criteria for successful task completion. This will make it obvious to the learner what behaviors they need to engage in. Start with a small number of behaviors, and you should include some easier behaviors. This will make it so that the client will encounter the contingency and will receive reinforcement. You should also make sure the participants have the prerequisite skills for the target behavior. Again, this is to ensure that the client will attain reinforcement. And if you're applying a token economy to a group, you should individualize the target behaviors and rules to increase the effectiveness of the token economy. There are several important things to consider when selecting the tokens that will be used in your token economy. First and foremost is safety. If you are working with a young learner or one with severe behavioral problems, the token that you are using should not be one that can be swallowed or otherwise used to cause injury. Tokens should also not be too large, too cumbersome, or too difficult to transport. These should be easy to administer and not add more difficulty to the lives of those who are implementing it. Tokens should be unique enough or properly managed so that the learners are not able to bootleg their own. For example, if check marks are used as tokens, clients should not have access to the card that are used to mark the tokens, or a special pen should be used for those check marks. Tokens should also be durable so that they can be repeatedly used and used for an extended period of time. In addition, they should be easy to carry, handle, bank, store, and accumulate. Again, these tokens should not be making things more difficult. Tokens should be readily accessible to the analyst or the person who is implementing the token economy so that they can be easily dispensed when the target behavior occurs. Lastly, tokens should be inexpensive if you want the token economy to withstand the test of time. You should also be wary that the tokens themselves, if you're using a highly desirable item, can distract the students from the tasks at hand. For example, using popular baseball cards as tokens may not be efficient, as students may spend more time looking at the card than engaging in the behaviors necessary to earn more. Here we have several examples of different tokens that can be used. A raffle ticket, gold stars, stickers, tokens, or check marks. As a reminder, tokens should always be safe, simple, easy to implement, inexpensive, and durable. The next step is to develop a menu of backup reinforcers. As a reminder, reinforcers should always be individualized. A good way to ensure that this is done is to conduct a reinforcer assessment to help best determine what known items the client would like to use as reinforcers. This should also be redone as the token economy continues to be in effect to ensure that preferences have not changed and update as necessary. It is important to note that the reinforcers that you are using cannot deny the learner basic needs or access to personal or privileged information or events. For example, a basic need such as dinner or showering cannot be used as a backup reinforcer. Personal or privileged information or events includes things such as telephone privileges, access to mail, attending religious services, medical care, etc. In general, with backup reinforcers, a variety of reinforcers can be used. Naturally occurring activities or events, such as popular games or materials in school, or trading in tokens for preferred classroom jobs, such as the office messenger. School privileges, such as a study hall pass, could also be used. Other reinforcers could include things such as their favorite snacks or highly preferred games. Here we've included 3 different examples of reinforcement menus. Each of these examples includes a variety of different reinforcers. These include things such as activities like the trampoline or play dates, or edibles such as candy, M&Ms, Tostitos, donuts, or tangible items such as puzzles, books, movies, coloring books. One thing that isn't included in these reinforcement menus that would be beneficial to include would be the cost of each item. For example, it should state how many tokens are necessary to exchange for each item, such as 5 tokens are required for M&Ms, whereas 10 tokens might be required for a movie. The next step is to establish a token exchange ratio. To begin with, it's important to keep the ratio low so that the client can learn the token economy. Then, as target behaviors increase in frequency, you can then increase the cost of the backup reinforcers. You should also devalue the tokens by increasing the number of backup items. Finally, you can increase the cost of necessary items more than that of luxury items. This way, the clients will exchange more tokens for the necessary backup items. Here we have several different examples of token boards that can be used. 2 of the examples are similar, but they have different token ratios. On the left side, we see a token board with a ratio of 3. The stars are the tokens that are being used, and there's a spot for the client to put an icon of the item that they are working for. On the right side, it's the same token board. However, the ratio for this board is 5. So the client must earn 5 stars in order to get the item that they're working for. The bottom example also has a spot for the client to write in the item that they're working for. However, this board has a ratio of 10. So the tokens that they must acquire are 10 in order to earn the item that they are working towards. The next step is to determine how the tokens will be dispensed. Some tokens, such as a hole punch on a card or check marks on a token board, are obvious, but you may need a container for certain tokens. These tokens could be poker chips, raffle tickets, etc. So you should store tokens while accumulating them. One thing to be wary of is that access to tokens may result in off-task behavior. So having a container can mitigate this. Token containers can be viewed similarly to piggy banks. It is a place to store them while being accumulated and waiting for exchange for the backup reinforcers. On the left, you see an example of a container that can have a lock cap so that the client cannot have access to them. On the right, we see a similar example. Either of these can be used as token containers for storing while accumulating. Next, you should determine how the tokens will be exchanged. One way is to provide a menu of the backup items. The menu can include a cost of the backup items. Learners can select from the menu, and you can have a table ready with the items for them to select from. Some learners may need more frequent exchange periods. However, as quickly as possible, token exchanges should be occurring intermittently. Here we see a reward menu where the token is complement sticks. The backup reinforcers here range from 10 complement sticks for treasure box A all the way to 100 where the client can then move their desk. Here we have a client that chooses treasure box B for 20 sticks. What he'll do is take his 20 tokens and hand them over to his teacher. In exchange, he'll get the token box that he picked as his backup reinforcer. The next step is to specify what happens if token requirements are not met. If the client is able to still attain the tokens, you should restate the rule to the student. For example, you have to complete your homework to earn your tokens. However, if the client is no longer able to earn the tokens, you should state why the contingency wasn't met. For example, you could say, you didn't complete your homework, so you don't get to get your tokens. One variation to the token economy is using a response cost version. Response cost is defined by Malott and Shane as the response contingent removal of a tangible reinforcer resulting in a decreased frequency of that response. This is a penalty contingency. With this version, clients would begin the day with a specified amount of tokens, and tokens would be removed contingent on the occurrence of target behaviors or inappropriate behaviors. If using a response cost, it is important to clearly define what behaviors would result in the removal of tokens. And the learners should be aware of what behaviors or actions will result in that loss. It is also important to not allow the student to go into debt. By doing so, it will decrease the reinforcement value of the tokens. The final step before fully implementing a token economy is to spend at least 3 to 5 days testing the token economy. You should tally when the tokens would be earned. However, don't actually give the tokens during this time. This will allow you to determine baseline data and see if once implemented, the token economy is producing effective results. In addition to gaining baseline data, you also gain information and can make final adjustments before the system is officially put into place. For example, you may learn that the clients are already engaging in the behaviors that are going to be targeted with the token economy. Or you can determine if some learners may not be receiving any tokens at all because they are not engaging in the behaviors at all. Question. Let's take a look at this case study. The target behavior you are looking at is completing all questions on a homework sheet before bedtime to earn 1 token. Mary, your client, has only completed 8 out of the 10 questions, and bedtime is in 10 minutes. On your homework sheet, fill in the question, what should you do? I'll give you some time to get that question filled in. The answer to the previous question, what should you do, is restate the rule to the student. Since Mary still has time to finish her homework, you could say, you have to complete all 10 questions on your homework sheet in the next 10 minutes to earn your token. If, however, Mary still did not finish her homework, you would then say, you did not finish all 10 questions on your homework sheet, so you did not earn your token. On your homework sheet, write the answer, restate the rule to the student. I'll give you some time to get this answer filled in. Question. Let's look at another case study. Your client is earning marbles as tokens for a variety of on-task behaviors during class, such as raising her hand instead of yelling, asking for help instead of throwing her materials, and staying on task during silent reading time. On your homework sheet, fill in the question, what might you need? I'll now give you some time to get that question filled in. The answer to the question, what might you need, for a client who is earning marbles as tokens would be somewhere to store the accumulated tokens. Marbles, in and of themselves as tokens, can become distracting for a client. Even having access to the container that they are stored in with the marbles may pose as an issue. So it might be important to also have control over the container. On your homework sheet, fill in the answer, somewhere to store accumulated tokens. I'll now give you some time to get that answer filled in. Now let's cover initial training with a token economy. The amount of time and effort you spend on the initial training will depend on the functioning level of your client. First, you should provide an example of the token system. Doing so, you can model the procedure for token delivery, engage in a response, and allow the client to have the token. Then you can model the procedure for token exchange by providing the tokens and allowing access to the preferred backup reinforcers. You may need to prompt or provide several initial learning opportunities for the client to engage in all of the correct responses. Again, how much time you'll have to spend on this is going to depend on each individual client and will be different for each client. Ongoing training should be done as well. To be in line with reinforcement, tokens should be delivered contingent on behaviors. They should also be immediately following the desired behavior. For effective reinforcement, delivery and exchange of tokens should be clear, and it should also be followed consistently throughout token exchange. You should also have a primary focus on increasing desired behaviors. Next, we will be watching a short video on how to make your token economy as successful as possible.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Perrin, Board Certified Behavior Analyst at Brett Denovy & Associates, and I'd like to talk about token economies and some of the important considerations when designing and implementing a token system. Here are some of the task list topics that will be covered in this discussion. Token economy systems are a very common intervention used in the applied setting. However, a lot of the times they are not designed and based on empirical literature. Timothy Hackenberg in 2018 recently synthesized the applied and basic literature and devised evidence-based recommendations for practice. Those recommendations fall into three areas: how to establish tokens as conditioned reinforcers, fading access to the backup reinforcer, and considerations when regarding token loss as a form of negative punishment. Tokens function as conditioned reinforcers due to their pairing with an already established reinforcer. Prior to implementing the token economy, time should be taken to establish the tokens as a reinforcer, as opposed to just presenting the token and the established reinforcer together. It's best practice to use a contingency-based pairing, where a response produces a token which is immediately exchanged for the backup reinforcer. This teaches the exchange response and establishes the token as a discriminative stimulus for the exchange. During acquisition, tokens should be produced on a rich schedule, such as a fixed ratio 1 or an FR1. Additional token requirements can be added to the system by systematically adding tokens using backwards chaining. As you can see, additional tokens are now being added to the token system. Fading access to the backup reinforcers can occur in two ways. One is to increase the token production requirements, and the other one is to increase the exchange production requirements. And both of these alternates have some limitations. Increasing token production requirements can result in effects such as ratio strain. So previously, an individual would complete one task and earn a token. And when you increase the token production requirement, they now have to complete 4 or 5 demands to access the token, which can weaken responding to produce the token. Whereas increasing the exchange production schedule results in a longer delay to the backup reinforcer. So instead of having to earn 3 tokens, you now have to earn 5 tokens, which in turn weakens the responding to produce tokens early in the system because the earlier tokens signal a long delay to the backup reinforcers. So we need to look to the literature to help determine which of these alternates is best. Tarboe and colleagues in 2006 suggested that increasing the exchange production schedule is best. One reason for this is that as we increase the number of tokens required to produce the backup reinforcer, we tend to increase the magnitude of that reinforcer. One of the things that you can do to mitigate the effects of early tokens signaling those long delays to the reinforcement is to transition to a variable token exchange schedule. In doing this, those early tokens do not consistently signal those long delays to reinforcement. So some important considerations. As the number of tokens produced increases, you want to make sure that you limit the individual from saving tokens, because saved tokens will weaken token production behavior. In addition, you need to ensure to the greatest extent possible that those backup reinforcers are not readily or freely available outside of that token system, because if they are available all the time, this too will weaken that token production behavior. And the last area that we're going to talk about is aversive control. So it may be necessary to combine punishment with token systems. And a common negative punishment is to use token loss contingent on problem behavior. One advantage of token loss is that the negative side effects that are associated with punishment, such as escape and social disruption, that we see with other forms of punishment, have been reported infrequently when token loss is used as a punisher in a token economy system. However, token loss can weaken responding to produce tokens, especially if tokens are produced on a ratio-based schedule. And one way to address this is to transition to a time-based production schedule, such as a variable interval schedule, as these schedules have been shown to be less sensitive to the punishment effects than our ratio-based schedules. And finally, for token loss to be most effective, loss of tokens should be contingent on problem behavior, immediate, and those loss of tokens should be large. For example, the individual needs to lose all of those tokens. I hope you enjoyed the discussion on token economy. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and like this video, and I look forward to reading your comments. Thanks.
Question: what 3 areas were discussed in the previous video regarding token economy success? I'll give you some time to get this question filled in on your homework sheet. The answer to the previous question, what 3 areas were discussed in the previous video regarding token economy success, are 1. Establish tokens as conditioned reinforcers, 2. Fade access to the backup reinforcers, And 3, considerations regarding token loss. I'll give you some time to get this answer filled in on your homework sheet. There are some issues that may arise when implementing a token economy. We will now go over those issues and how to deal with them as they arise. First, you may see students hoarding tokens. A solution to this is to discourage this at all costs. You should establish the expectation that the student should exchange at least some of their earned tokens periodically, unless they are attempting to accumulate and save up tokens for a high price item. You may also see students stealing or counterfeiting tokens. Preemptive measures should be taken, such as placing the tokens in a secure location to reduce the risk that they will be counterfeit or stolen. You can also occasionally switch out the token that is being used. The final issue that may occur is students attempting to purchase items on credit. You should never allow students to purchase items that they do not have enough tokens for. You cannot be sure that they will engage in the behaviors in the future required to earn back those borrowed credits. Next, we will cover how to withdraw a token economy. There are 6 guidelines that Cooper, Heron, and Heward have identified that will allow the practitioner to develop and later withdraw token reinforcers effectively. First, tokens should always be paired with verbal praise while the token economy is in effect. This pairing will help to establish praise as a learned reinforcer. Second, the number of responses to earn a token should be gradually increased. At first, for example, a client may be only required to read 1 page to earn a token. But as time goes on, this requirement should be increased, and eventually he should be required to read several pages to earn that 1 token. Third, the duration the token economy is in effect should be gradually reduced. At the beginning, the token economy may be in effect all day or during the entire school day. That time should be gradually reduced until it was only in effect for a few hours of the day or only a few days of a week. Fourth, you should gradually remove backup reinforcers that are not found in the natural environment. For example, in a school classroom, you are unlikely to find edible reinforcers, so you should begin fading those out while including items that are found in the classroom, such as gold stars, positive notes that get sent home, etc. Fifth, you should increase the price of desirable items and decrease the price of undesirable items. As you increase the price of these desirable items, the client will be less likely to save up and spend the tokens to earn them, and they will continually purchase the less desirable items that are more common in their everyday classroom. And sixth, you should gradually fade the physical evidence of the tokens. For example, you may begin with poker chips as the tokens, and then next you would replace them with slips of paper. Eventually, you could switch to tally marks on an index card, and at first the client could keep the index card on their desk with them. Eventually, then, the classroom teacher would have the card with them at all times, and eventually the client could only be allowed to check their balance at the end of the day, and then every other day, and then this would continue to be faded until the token economy is no longer in effect. You should also be determining the effectiveness of your token economy. This should be done on an individual basis. If you are implementing this with a group of students, it is not appropriate to allow some students to continue with an ineffective intervention just because it is working for other students. One way to determine the effectiveness is to collect social validity data before, during, and/or after the token economy. Social validity can be in the form of a questionnaire asking those involved how they viewed the intervention. This can be done with the participants, such as using a scale to assess whether they liked it, or with significant others. For example, asking the classroom teacher how easy or difficult it was to implement, determining whether they viewed that their efforts that were put in were worth the increase in appropriate behaviors that were observed, and so on. Now we're going to move on to the pros and cons of using token economies. First, we'll take a look at the benefits. By using a token economy, you can increase the ratio schedule that a client is on. Instead of reinforcing on a fixed ratio 1 schedule, also known as continuous reinforcement, you can gradually build up the schedule of reinforcement. This is done through the use of using tokens as learned reinforcers. In addition, it is beneficial when you cannot provide access to the primary reinforcer immediately. For example, if a client enjoys jumping on a trampoline, you can use a token economy to bridge that time gap between when they are engaging in the target behaviors and when you can provide access to that primary reinforcer. Token economies also teach acceptance to delayed gratification. Since you are not immediately providing access to the backup reinforcer, the client is learning to wait and accept those delays. Finally, token economies are beneficial because they reduce the risk or side effects that you see often with satiation. Since there are a wide variety of backup reinforcers, it is unlikely that a client will be satiated on all of the items, and therefore the tokens are unlikely to be ineffective as long as you have backup items that they are motivated to work for. Now let's look at the cons of using a token economy. Token economies can be very time-consuming, especially if you are implementing a token economy with a group instead of just one individual. Since token economies need to be individualized, you would need to spend time identifying effective backup reinforcers, ratio schedules, and spend time initially teaching for each individual student. They can also be very costly. The cost of backup reinforcers, in addition to the costs spent on tokens, the storage of tokens, token boards, etc., can all add up. Finally, you must weigh the pros, which would be the expected benefits with the improvements in behavior, with the cons that are listed above. For some students, there may not be enough pros to outweigh the list of cons for implementing such a token economy. Question: which of the following is not an example of a benefit of a token economy? A. Token economies reduce the risk of satiation because the client can exchange for a variety of different items. B. If the client has a highly preferred reinforcer that you are unable to provide frequent access to, such as an activity, they can earn access to it by accumulating enough tokens. C. You don't have to pay as much attention because reinforcement is no longer immediately occurring after the target behavior, it is now delayed. Or D. You can gradually increase the ratio schedule while continually providing praise. On your homework sheet, fill in the question, which of the following is not an example of a benefit of a token economy? I'll give you some time to get this question filled in. The answer to the previous question, which of the following is not an example of a benefit of a token economy, is C. You don't have to pay as much attention because reinforcement is no longer occurring immediately after the target behavior. It is now delayed. Reinforcement is still occurring. The token is now immediately following the behavior as opposed to the backup reinforcer. So you do still have to pay attention because you need to deliver the tokens contingent on the target behaviors. On your homework sheet, fill in the answer C. I'll give you some time to get that answer filled in. There are a few other things to consider when determining whether to implement a token economy. First, token economies can be intrusive. They take a lot of time, energy, and resources to implement, maintain, and evaluate on an ongoing basis. In addition, token economies do not occur regularly in a client's natural environment, so much thought must be given in how to thin the schedule. Second, token economies can be so effective in addressing the behaviors that we are targeting that we don't want to remove them. However, then learners will continue working for backup reinforcers that are not available in their natural environment. This will make it much more difficult for them to generalize or switch to more appropriate reinforcers that they will encounter on a regular basis. Lastly, token economies can be cumbersome. There are many different moving parts, especially if it's being implemented with multiple participants who are all on different schedules of reinforcement. We're now going to finish up by going over several token economy examples. The first example we'll go over is an example of a response cost token economy that was used to reduce students cursing. The issue that arose was students in a middle school classroom were constantly blurting out curse words. The solution to this issue was to provide each student with a swearing coupon book. Anytime the student swore, they were to rip out one of their coupons and hand it over to the teacher. Any unused coupons were then converted to tokens, and these tokens, in addition to other tokens they could earn for other things, were then able to be exchanged for items in a classroom store. This is an example of response cost because the students were all given a specified amount of coupons at the beginning of the day and then lost those coupons contingent on the target behavior of swearing. The next example, conducted by Higgins, Williams, and McLaughlin in 2001, used a token economy to decrease disruptive behaviors. The issue here was students were exhibiting high levels of out-of-seat, talking, and poor sitting behaviors during class. The solution to this issue was providing check marks contingent on alternative behaviors. So as long as the clients were not engaging in out-of-seat, tucking out, or poor sitting behaviors, they could earn check marks. These check marks were then exchangeable for free time later. The next example, conducted by Fox in 1998, used a token economy to increase and decrease a variety of target behaviors. The issue: adolescents between the ages of 12 and 18 years old in a coeducational residential unit were exhibiting extremely aggressive and disruptive behaviors. The solution to this problem was to increase the prosocial behaviors and decrease the inappropriate behaviors of physical aggression, property destruction, window breaking, and manipulative self-abuse. They used a token economy with a hole punch token card with DRO. They differentially reinforced other behaviors. So a hole punch was provided contingent on behaviors that excluded those listed above. The clients could then exchange their tokens for a lounge area that was enriched with a variety of backup reinforcers, or they could get passes to community outings, such as going to the movies, going bowling, etc. Finally, we'll conclude with a video example of another token economy.
Hi, I'm Regina Tui, and this is my friend Callan. Today, as a requirement for my Applied Behavior Analysis course, we'll be showing you how to implement a token economy system in your classroom. In this video, I'll be reinforcing the behavior of task completion. Callan will be working to complete tasks, and as he completes a task, he will receive a token. This is the token economy system that I'll be using today with Callan. It's called Callan's Star Chart. Now, first I will start by showing Callan his choices of backup reinforcers that he could work for. Callan, what do you want to work for today? Okay, so Callan will be working for the iPad today. Callan will earn 1 star token for each of these jobs that he completes. When Callan earns 3 stars on his chart, he will gain access to the backup reinforcer of the iPad that he has chosen for up to 10 minutes. So Callan, you have to get 3 star tokens before you can get the iPad. Here's your first job. Awesome job. Here's your first star. Okay, sort your shapes. Callan, you finished your last job. What does that mean?
iPad.
iPad. Thank you, Callan. Callan, are you glad you got the iPad?
Hi, I'm Tracy, and I give consent for my son Callan to appear in this video.
This concludes today's training on task list item C12, Implement Token Economy Procedures. You may now take the quiz.